TopMedTalk.
Well, welcome back to TopMedTalk. We're at Anesthesiology 2022 here in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's the annual meeting of the American Society of Anesthesiologists. I'm Desiree Chappell. I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Professor Monty Mythen and Professor Saul Aronson. Gentlemen, it's wonderful to see you.
Desiree, I'm humbled. What a privilege it was to just meet the ASA Global Scholars.
That's right. If you've been watching the live stream or catching up with our pods online, you will have heard interviews that we were just able to meet with the group of global scholars that are sponsored by the American Society of Anesthesiologists. And to hear their stories and the experiences that they have had as global scholars, they get to come here, be part of the meeting, Anesthesiology 2022. They also have opportunities to go to facilities and organizations across the U.S. to see what it's like to do anesthesia here in the U.S. And so it was a privilege and very humbling.
So thank you to the ASA for supporting it.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's one of our, we're proudest of these kinds of programs, that we can make outreach to other parts of the world, support young anesthesiologists and even people that are considering careers in anesthesiology. It's very gratifying. We partner with Society for Pediatric Anesthesia to bring these individuals here, and the experience for them to not only come to Anesthesiology 2022, but to visit some academic programs around the country is also equally awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Well, Dr. Randall Clark, everyone. Dr. Clark, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. You know, it was a year ago this weekend that we were able to meet you as the incoming president of the American Society for Anesthesiologists. So congratulations on your year in leadership.
Thank you. I had a little bit of trepidation when I went into my talk last year, and I didn't know what to expect. It was one of the highlights of my meeting, and I'm looking forward to this conversation today. You make this a very easy process.
Well, thank you very much. Well, it's amazing guests, honestly. So, Randy, tell us about what we were talking about last year, what your vision for this year was going to be. Tell us a little bit more about.
So we follow our strategic priorities that we set collectively for the organization between our elected officers and our board of directors, informed by processes we have at the ASA House of Delegates. We really try to make ASA a bottom-up organization so that we can have engagement from any member that wants to be engaged. We have a very large house. It's about 340 members spread across the entire United States. We have an incredible array of programs related to our strategic priorities. We talk probably most about our advocacy agenda, but ASA is an educational organization. Yes. We exist to promote research. I stopped in on the celebration of research a little bit earlier, and it's truly inspiring to see what all investigators, but especially our young investigators, are doing. So it's been a whirlwind over the last year, but I wouldn't miss any of it. As far as the priorities for me, I am somewhat unusual in that I had been a longtime member of the board of directors. So while I made advocacy for certain priorities at the board of directors, I also had ideas if I became president on the areas that I would like to accelerate. So we have worked in a very broad fashion on a number of areas. Our economic challenges are significant, and so we are proposing the creation of a new center to address just perioperative economics. We want to deliver on the promise of perioperative medicine. We are here with one of the world experts on perioperative.
So two of them, actually. They both have done quite a bit of work in that.
Very much. And we are also extending this center concept to perioperative medicine. And we want to build on what we had done before, but also take it further. So those are still in the formative stages. We're still building the roadmaps for those ideas, and would love to have your input and participation in that, because I have seen your work, and you know what needs to be done. Member engagement and member professional development are huge priorities for ASA. So I'm very proud that we have taken some programs of mentoring and sponsorship that exists in some of our committees, primarily our Committee on Professional Diversity, and we are trying to ramp that up into an organization-wide focus on mentoring and sponsorship. So we have a task force working on that, led by ASA Secretary Ken Elmasian. It's looking at professional diversity, but also what has been done in other related organizations like the Society for Pediatric Anesthesia and their WELI program that sought to help promote women in pediatric anesthesiology through mentoring and sponsorship across the country. All of this has the potential to drive the development of the future leaders in the specialty. But for me, I think the biggest reward is having young and middle career anesthesiologists be more productive in their professional lives, but to increase their satisfaction with their professional engagements. And so we're still on the very early front end of that, but the idea of mentoring and sponsorship, which there's an element of that in the Global Scholars Program we mentioned earlier, is very satisfying.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing work. It makes me kind of sound tired, Randy, that you've been doing. You know, we've had an opportunity to speak to many of the presenters, those who are on different committees throughout the ASA, and the work that's being done here truly is admirable. I mean, there's, and it's really a lot of work that's being done by a lot of different people. Talk to us just a little bit more about some of the committees that you have been, really excited about this last year that have made some great progress.
First of all, I just want to talk broadly about the committee structure. We are different than other professional associations in that we have a very large number of committees, more than 100 committees and editorial boards. We have about 10 ad hoc committees that are created at the direction of the president to either tackle specific problems or to lay the groundwork for future committees. The perioperative medicine is one example of that. There are more than 1,200 people engaged in the committee structure. We have 4,000 individual applications for those committee assignments. So we really rely on our members for their insight, their experience, their skill to be able to move programs forward for the organization. And I think it's why, in my experience, ASA is one of the most forward-thinking professional associations. I've worked in my state society for a long time, and I will tell you that anesthesiology, I think, is far ahead of most other specialty organizations. So I think we're doing something right, and I'm very glad to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there have been a lot of challenges, but a lot of great opportunities for anesthesiologists over the last year. I think, last year we were really coming out of COVID and talking about how the profession of anesthesiology was really highlighted during that time. How has that kind of continued to grow over the last year?
And I really want to call out my predecessors, Beverly Phillip and Mary Dale Peterson.
Yes.
They led us through the worst of the pandemic. We created a group of experts and leaders that would advise ASA, and we established relationships with external organizations, the likes of which I have never seen in my career. We had frequent phone calls with, and there would be American College of Surgeons. We would have chest physicians. We would have respiratory therapy, all on single calls to develop policies that we could recommend both to the government and on how to respond to the pandemic, but also our frontline workers who needed critical information about protecting themselves, protecting their patients, and what was just the right thing to do in a unique situation that none of us had really truly ever experienced before. Yeah. So it was an amazing thing to watch. My hat's off to Mary Dale Peterson and Beverly Phillip. We put out a record number of policy statements, almost always developed in conjunction with other organizations, and really, I think, met the need that our members and our related physicians and other healthcare providers needed. That work continues, but obviously with the pandemic not being quite as serious as it was before, that led us to understand that we could work in a more collaborative nature with all of these other organizations going forward. So just this past week, Michael Chappell and I were in California at the American College of Surgeons Clinical Congress there, and we had their representatives here yesterday afternoon in talking on issues of mutual importance. I was in Washington, D.C. for a new Surgical Care Coalition kickoff there, and that degree of cooperation, I think, is going to continue to address some of the challenges that we have in medicine. I think it's absolutely essential we do that.
Yeah, 100%. Monty?
So Randy, as I think you know, we went charging into perioperative medicine in the UK, led by the Royal College of Anaesthetists, with the blessing of the surgeons and everybody else, and ended up forming a National Centre for Perioperative Care, CPOC. Now, we've done that, which is great, and we've embraced this vision, much of it articulated by Sol Aronson and others. And now what we have is a massive shortfall of providers, which is an opportunity and a threat, if you see what I mean. Now, we're seeing it as an opportunity. We now touch 2/3 of the in-hospital patients. We're the most impactful set of providers and recognised as such, and are contributing now to population health.
Absolutely.
But our projected shortfall of providers is massive. So that's the opportunity. That's a loaded question. Where I think I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm just teeing that ball up for you.
We have been putting tremendous resources into understanding the questions and developing potential answers to those known supply-demand imbalances that we have. We think we've been victims somewhat of our own successes. We know that the number of anesthesiologists and anesthetists that finish training in this country each year continues to rise. We have a record number of anesthesiologists and anesthetists in the country, and so something else has to be going on in the background. We know we're putting more anesthesiologists into different locations. I do pediatric anesthesia, and we expend considerable resources in radiology and procedural areas of the hospital. In times past, those were really done by sedation and done with not very good drugs for sedation, including pentobarbital, which has a long sort of hangover after the use. Once we started becoming more involved in delivering those services, it really increased our demand. So we've got to come up with some rationalization over where we put our efforts and services, see if there are more things that could be done without our direct services, but still with our expertise overseeing that quality as best as we can. Plus, we're looking at some novel ideas related to training programs, whether we expand traditional anesthesiology residencies, which is hard to do because of the funding aspect of that. And there are actual new residencies being created around the country by individuals, companies, or hospitals that have not traditionally been part of academic institutions. We have in the next month's ASA Monitor a series of articles that will be exploring the workforce question as a result of our Workforce Summit in June. And so I'd encourage your listeners to tune in to the ASA Monitor as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, congratulations on your accomplishments over this year. It sounds like you have moved the organization to a great direction, or continue to go in a great direction. So congratulations. Now, one thing I wanted to end on is talk to us about the Anesthesia Quality Institute.
Yes, I think it's one of the crown jewels of ASA.
Yeah.
Alex Hannenberg and others helped create AQI in 2008 with the intention of driving improvements in quality of care and patient safety. It had the ability to gather tremendous amounts of data, but at this point, it is still data that needs to be refined. We collect administrative data, but we need to collect more clinical data, and we need to collect outcomes data to a much better degree than we do now. We underwent a strategic planning process at AQI over the last year and a half. We're in the early stages of implementing that strategic plan, and it's looking at improving the quality of data, improving the number of participating sites that contribute data, and really taking that information to drive improvements in outcomes. Other organizations do this, including American College of Surgeons and others. It's a big process.
Is it?
And so we're
Absolutely.
waiting on this as well. One of the things we're all being challenged with, Randy, is to come up with some agreed team outcomes.
Yes.
You know, we've got to embrace that. We've been pushing it away in the UK for a while, but now we're going to embrace it. You know, acute kidney injury, we've all got our fingerprints on that. Post-operative wound infections, potentially we've all got our fingerprints on that. But where are you with regards to, you may not be able to say with your wearing your president's hat, but do you see that as part of the journey going forward with the surgeons?
If I have anything to say about it, absolutely, because I think it's essential. It's also going to be an important part of addressing some of our payment challenges. And so really improving the quality of care for our patients is job number one. But we have a completely topsy-turvy payment system in this country that is becoming more complex with expanding Medicare, reduced Medicare payment over time, and now the effects of the No Surprises Act on commercial payment. And so we need to deliver on the value of what we bring to patients, but we need to prove that and then be compensated for that. And so surgeons and others are looking at how do we prove that value proposition? How do we create a payment system that reflects that and that drives efficiency but improves care and outcomes?
Yeah. Well, as Vice President of Clinical Quality for North Star Anesthesia, you're speaking my language.
Yes. Sol, you've given this a lot of thought.
No, I think you guys touched on everything. I really appreciate the work you've done, Randy, over the last year. And you could ask, what were your highlights? What do you perceive as your challenges? And, what are those opportunities for the next, administration? But I think, developing those relationships with other societies as a part of necessity to get through the crisis, and hopefully building on those relationships to work together to address the next, if you will, hurdles in front of us, which, involve payer methodologies and defining relative value of members of the team toward the end goal.
Absolutely.
So good luck to us.
Well, we have to get smarter.
Yes.
And we're fortunate that we have a lot of smart people working in the specialty, looking at these issues. We just really need to get engagement. And I will say, I won't describe it as a challenge, but as a wish, if I had a magic wand, that we could pull even more anesthesiologists and other physicians into the conversation to look for these solutions, because it's really going to take everybody working together to address them.
Yeah, 100%. Dr. Clark, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us. Very last comment, the thing you feel most proud about what you've accomplished this year.
We have put in play just so many different important programs. I think it's a little bit weird, but our ability to just manage that book of business is what I'm most proud of. We have tremendous ASA staff, tremendous leadership on the staff side with Mr. Pomerantz. And I think that when we try and answer the question, are we delivering member value? I think we can say absolutely, 100%. And so that's really what I'm most proud of.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations on a great year.
And Randy, thank you. This
I know.
This has been wonderful.
Yeah.
To work together. We started 5 years ago, but we built gradually to this point. So this is wonderful to have this opportunity.
TopMedTalk is totally cool. And, after last year, I went online and I wanted to look at my my interview, but I couldn't leave. It's like going to YouTube once you get started going through the videos.
That's a new byline. TopMedTalk is totally cool.
I love
Quote.
it. Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for the support to be here this year. We couldn't have done it without you guys.
Thank you.
So, all right. And thank you for listening to TopMedTalk. If you've liked what you've heard today, you can find it at topmedtalk.com. The ASA is actually going to be promoting or using this content throughout the year in various different forms. So be on the lookout for that as well. And again, thank you to the American Society of Anesthesiologists for the support to be here at Anesthesiology 2022. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for downloading TopMedTalk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, don't forget, TopMedTalk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.